Okay, I have a question today that has the ability to change your life forever. The course of your life could be changed forever with this one question. But you know how I roll. I like to save things for a little bit later. So we're going to save this question almost to the end, this question that has the power to change your life. And instead, we're going to start with a little bit of a game. What I've got is 4 different objects. Here's object number 1 right here. And object number 2 right here. Object number 3, intriguing, huh? And object number 4 right here. We're going to play a little bit of a game, and the game you see right here is who made it and how was it made? Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and walk this by. Actually, I need some help. Any volunteers today? Any brave volunteers? Wow, where's all? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All I want you to do is hold this, like right here with your fingers, and I want you to just walk around and let everybody take a good look at this, okay? I need another individual right here. Who's trust? Can I trust you, man? Okay, go ahead, come on up. This is going to be a test of Micah here today. I want you to walk this around, and as he walks by, feel free to touch this if you want to. Just walk it by all the rows. Okay, we're going to do something else. Okay, Tanya, go ahead here. I want you to walk this around. This one's important. When you walk by, I want you to walk like this, okay? And I want everybody that can touch this thing, okay? Try not to knock anybody. If you're on the side, beware.
It's a new big weapon. Come on.
Okay, go ahead and touch that. And be thinking of your answer. You're not going to have a lot of time to do this. And last one. All right, go ahead. Now this one, you're going to have to look close, but you're not going to have a lot of time. You're going to have to play limbo under that, I guess. Okay, you can start right over there. Hold it out like this and just walk slowly. You can start on that aisle and kind of work this way. Just make sure. You're just going to make sure everybody can see it, just like that. Okay? Yes. So as they walk by, I want you to write down, you're not going to have a lot of time, write down who made it and how it was made. Let's go ahead and walk down the aisle. Okay? Okay, I'm going to give you about a minute. So our helpers, do your best. You're going to have to go a little bit quicker. All right, very good. Okay, want to see some pencils moving? Or if you don't have a pencil, write it down in your mind because you're not going to be able to change your answer, okay? We're going to give 30 seconds. So, okay. All right. Those of you that have not, or if you haven't shown all the rows, do a quick walk by, because for the sake of time, we must continue. All right. Hey, that's a great idea, Tanya. Beware if anybody falls asleep. I can reach a lot of people with this. All right. Go ahead, Tanya. We're going to have to bypass that row. You can put it right up there on the stage. Thank you very much for the help. Right, I'm going to set this right here. Okay. And we got our last item. Micah, go ahead and bring that up. And our piece of wood. Okay. Set this right here. And that right there. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody have your answer down. Who made it? How it was made. 10 seconds. Ready? Have to be all done by the time 10 seconds is up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Put your pencils down. You may not change your answer. Okay. Now, item number 1. Who thinks they know who made this? Okay, let's pick Bridget. Who do you think made it? you think Brianna? Anybody have a different guess? Okay, Melanie. It's a possibility. Take one more guess. Who made this? Micah. Okay, very good. Now, how was it made? Yes. With a pencil. Anybody else have any ideas? By hand. Hand, pencil, and paper. That's a good theory. Okay, so I've heard your answers. Now I'm going to give you my answer. Okay? Here's how it all took place. You see, there was an art store. And in this art store, there was a shelf. Okay? And this shelf is filled with these art pencils. And on the other side, Brianna, what do you call, where's Brianna at? What do you call those pads that you write in? Sketch pad. On the other side is a sketch pad, and the shelf is full of those. Now, you would not believe what happened. There were two people, one walking on this side of the paper, and the other one walking on the other side of the pencils. And at the precise moment, one bumps into the shelf, and you know what happens? One of the books fell off on the floor and opened up. Okay? On the other side, at the same time, this guy was jumping around just like this, and then all of a sudden, you know what happens? The pencils begin to fall. And you would not believe what happened. Those pencils hit that paper, all of them at different angles, choo, choo, choo. Some of them lining like sideways, drawing these patterns. And even what was wild about it is that they hit at the right angle and made this signature right there. And each one that hit separated it from the paper until it was laying just like this on the floor. That is my answer. What are you laughing at? All right, well, let's go ahead and go to the next one. I'm kind of embarrassed on this one. Let's look, what's the second item we have here? A weapon. Anybody know what this is called? A mace. Okay, there we go. Who made this? Nerf? Anybody else have a different idea? Factory? Mattel? Okay, how was it made? Okay, in a company. What? A plastic mold. That's a good idea. Anybody else? Okay, those are your answers. Let me give you my answer. You will not believe this. This is amazing. You see, there was a foam mattress factory. And they're making these foam mattresses. And there's this guy, absent-minded. When he should be working, he's reading the paper, except he has bad eyesight. So he's got this magnifying glass in his hands. And he's walking just like this. And he trips over 3 cans of paint, yellow, gray, and black. And knocks them over. And as he hits these cans, the magnifying glass flies up in the air. And it gets caught in the rafter. Now, the skylight let in the sunlight, and it hit that magnifying glass at just the perfect angle and etched out the shape of this mace. Now, after it cooled off, it just gently rolled down, and it hit the paint, the black, the gray, the yellow, and it rolled until it is completely covered. It was amazing. You should have been there to see it. Okay. I'm seeing doubt here. Okay, I'm going to move on. I don't know why you're not believing me here. Who made it? Some say me, some say Jonah. Who else? Whitney. Could be a possibility. How was it made? By hand? Duct tape? Plastic pipe? Colored tape. You ready for my answer? Let me tell you what happened. See, there was an electrician that was working out one day, and he had the plastic conduit, the thing you send the wires through. He has that out, and there's also a plumber who had some of that foam stuff that goes around pipes to keep it from getting too cold. And so they were both out, and they had their stuff on the ground. They had some duct tape, some red, black, and gray silver duct tape. And then all of a sudden, they saw this huge tornado coming. So you know what they had to do. They had to leave the stuff right there. They left it on the ground, and they went undercover. And the most amazing thing happened. This tornado came. And as it came, it pushed the pipe and the thing that covers the pipe onto one another, just like that. And you know how tornadoes work. They go just like this. And so that duct tape began to unroll and unravel. And you see that the black duct tape just continued to roll around and around and around. And then it got mixed in with the red around and around. And then finally that little bit of the silver left wrapped that last bit. And that's how we have this today. That's my answer. One last one. Who made this? Some say Micah. Anybody have a different idea? God made this? Anybody else? Okay, how was it made? It was carved? Okay, very good. You're very close, but I'll tell you how it happened. Have you ever been driving on the side of the road and you see those signs, watch for falling rocks? Yeah. Okay, so there's this tree, and the rocks began to fall, and it hit the tree at the perfect angle and chopped off 2 logs like that. Then one of those logs continued to get hit rock by rock until you had this nice smooth layer on each side, like a 1x4 here. And then after that, after this was made, these last rocks came and etched just like this, and etched the name Micah into this. It was amazing. You should have seen it. That's my answer. Now, a lot of you are laughing here today. Why are you laughing? Doesn't sound like that's how it could happen. What else? It didn't evolve. It was created. How in the world do you know that these things were made by somebody? What? Some of them had a signature. Some of them had design, right? When you see Nerf here, when you see these edges, just like this, you know that nature doesn't produce this. Now, you might have something that kind of like a stick that kind of looks like this. Or you might have some, like a blob, you might see a smiley face in a drawing, right? But when you see all the detail, it screams to you a designer. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. While it would be amazing for us if we could explain all these things naturally, logic tells us that it probably did not happen this way. The design in these 4 items show the mark of a designer or a maker. Random nature does not produce things like this. So here's the point I want you to remember. Design implies a designer. Now, if we could somehow line up the material and try to make a situation where nature would do this, would it prove that it was made that way? What if we set up the pencils just right and we knew just where to hit them so that we could make a face like that? Would it prove that this is really made that way? No. We would have to work, and still you've got the problem of somebody bumping it to get it started, right? Well, I want to tell you, when it comes to nature, our schools are teaching us something. They're teaching us that billions of years ago, the universe began in a tiny, infinitely hot and dense point called a singularity. Now, this singularity contained all the mass and energy that would become everything we see today in space itself. So just imagine with me, some of you have never heard this, some of you grew up in this, some of you are hearing this in your school today. So everything that was and has ever been comes from this one infinitely hot, dense point called the singularity. Now, what happened was the energy turned into matter. How did that happen? Beats me. Turned into hydrogen and helium gas. It was amazing how it happened. Now, from that, this helium and hydrogen collapsed and made all the stars in the galaxies. Kind of sounds like one of my stories. Some of the stars created heavier elements in their core that stuck together and then exploded, sending these elements into space, just like those pencils falling off of the shelf. They exploded into space, creating planets and the Earth. Except there's a little bit of problem there. One flaw in believing that the Earth is millions and billions of years old is the moon. Okay, right now, the moon is moving away from the earth at every year an inch and a half. Now, you may be saying, well, that's not that big of a deal. It's about that big, right? Well, so every year it's moving further away. So what does that tell us about history? It's moving closer as you go back in time. What happens when you reach 1.4 billion years? Anybody know? Crash! The moon is actually hitting the earth. But yet, we are told that billions of years ago, I mean, we're talking about 8 billion, even further than that, some estimate. But even if you go back to 1.4 billion, the moon would be hitting the earth. It just does not add up. But hey, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's just move on here. Let's say that the earth was created this way, and then on the earth there were these things called amino acids. And they're created through some sort of chemical reaction. They actually have a scientist who proved this, that if you put hydrogen and helium together and you hit it with, electricity, that if you get the right circumstance, you can create these amino acids, which are the building blocks of life. And it sounds so amazing how this could all happen. Except there's one problem with this. In order for this to happen, the scientists had to remove all oxygen. Okay? So no oxygen in this experiment. Anybody have a problem with that? What are you breathing? Right. Okay, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that there was somehow a situation where there was not oxygen. Well, that presents another problem. You know what makes up our atmosphere? A lot of oxygen and other things. Without the atmosphere, the sun comes down and would basically fry. So these amino acids, here's exactly what would happen, is that the moment they were created, they would fry from the heat because there's no oxygen, no atmosphere to protect them. And so these building blocks of life, these amino acids, would not survive. A little bit of a problem. But hey, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's forget about the moon evidence. Let's forget about the amino acids' need for oxygen for a moment. And let's say that it really did happen that way. And these amino acids begin to grow, and they become invertebrates, and then they become fish, reptiles, mammals, eventually chimpanzees, apes, and boom, there we come, mankind. The problem is there's still no proof of macroevolution going from one species to another. Now, we have seen differences. When you breed two dogs together, you can come up with something that looks different. But what you see, when you breed what are two types of dogs? Anybody? Yorkie and a Chihuahua. When you breed a Yorkie and a Chihuahua, do you get a horse? No, you come up with a breed of dog, right? And so here's the problem with this change. You have to have new information. Every time we see evolution take place or these changes, it's always in a downward spiral. For instance, I need some math wizards to help me out with this problem. There is a florist who is selling flowers, and his only problem is that he is losing 10 cents on every flower. So let me ask you a question. How many flowers does he need to sell to turn a profit? It doesn't matter how many he sells, he's never going to make a profit because he's always losing. In the same way, when it comes to evolution, every time it's a downward spiral, it's never adding new information. You'll never be able to create anything different. Now, we could spend years examining all the evidence scientifically, and I encourage you to do so. Here's what I want you to do. There is a book. Have anybody heard Answers in Genesis? I think the guys in the back might have heard of them before. A ministry called Answers in Genesis, and they have 3 excellent books, and they're called Answers, simply. And they deal with a lot of the questions, and they deal with kind of the proof of evolution, and they talk about these in a great way. So I challenge you, if this is a question that you have in your heart, go and study it out. You know what's being told today? Christians are made to look like the stupid ones because we don't believe that it just amazingly happens that way. We're considered the unlearned ones. Matter of fact, I heard somebody say that parents that taught their kids about creation, that God is the creator, should be considered for child abuse. Because they're depriving of their children of knowledge. And the truth is, I think they're scared. They're scared of the truth. And so I challenge you, if you have questions in this area, I'll be happy to get those 3 books to you. You can buy them. Don't make a profit from them, but they're great information. But for a minute, let's assume that it's okay. Let's give this leap of faith and let's believe that everything that they said was true. Against impossible odds, the complexity of our bodies, how the universe is made, how the earth is positioned perfectly, where if we were a little bit closer to the sun, we'd burn up, and a little bit further away, we would freeze. Let's just say that all of that is by random chance. We still have an important question. We have a huge question. But before I tell you that question, we need to look at some assumptions that evolutionists make. And here's one, and this is the principle that guides them. It's naturalism. Wikipedia defines naturalism as the idea or belief that only natural laws or forces operate in the world. The idea or belief that nothing exists beyond the natural world. In this sense, they don't believe in spirits, and they most certainly do not believe in God. There is no purpose in nature. So naturalism teaches no God, only nature. Naturalism does not believe in the supernatural. There is no God, only normal processes that when given enough time will produce expected results. If you set up those pencils enough times, time after time, you knock them down one of those times, here's what's going to happen. If you put the duct tape in the tornado one of these times, this is what's going to happen. So we still have a flaw in this thinking. If we gave them all of this, what is the flaw? And I want to help you with this. Let's think through this logically. And this time, I want you to think as a teacher in a school today. Okay, where did mankind come from? Where? From apes, okay? Where did apes come from? Somebody help me out here. Fish. Okay, we'll skip on down. Okay, so fish, go down the line. Amino acids. Okay, where did amino acids come from? The hydrogen, yes, and the helium hit the right way. Okay, where did the hydrogen and helium come from? The singularity, that's right. And here we are at the question, where did the singularity come from? Now, naturalism teaches that everything comes by nature. What does nature teach us? That everything has a beginning, right? You and I have a beginning. Everything has a beginning. So what happens to naturalism at that point? There is a huge problem, a huge question that must be dealt with. Here's the question that has the power to change your life. What comes before the natural? Right? If all of these things are true, all of these are random chance, and you give people that, what happens? What comes before the natural? And here's the truth. Someone has to be supernatural. Someone has to have always existed. Someone is the creator. Now, I've got some options for you, and I've got some help today. We got a really smart dude called Richard Dawkins. How many of you have heard him before? Okay, he is a renowned atheist, okay? Thank you. Here's one option that he thought of. I thought this was good, and I added a picture to it. Hope you enjoy this. Aliens, okay? In an interview, you can actually look this up on YouTube as to where this beginning start. He said, there is a possibility that other life form came and started this singularity. But he does follow that up and says, even if they did do this, they would have to have a natural beginning as well. So we're really brought back to the same place, this singularity that contained everything in it, this infinitely hot and dense point that would explode and create everything. Now, last but not least, you know the third option, and that is God. Now, if we were to use scientific, logical method to answer that question, I believe that it would take less than 2 seconds, right? If you put all the pieces together, none of you believed that the 4 items here were created by chance. Not one of you. When I suggested that they were, what did you do? You laughed. You laughed at me. I'm hurt. But why is it in the world today that we're the ones that are laughed at? When we think of all the things that would have to come into being and the chance of it hitting the right place, working the way it does, and we're still discovering all that's in the cell inside of our bodies, all of this, just to say it's by chance is simply not logical. The probability of all those things happening by nature are astronomical and quite impossible. So that brings me to the question, why do people choose to believe in a godless creation that happens by chance? Why in the world would somebody say that this world could be created without God? And here is the reason, I think. If there is a God, then we must answer the question, why were we created? Right? If there is a God, then that means we got to find out who created us and what is it that they require of us. I believe that the belief in a singularity that caused everything is a desperate attempt to escape the fact that there is a God. If there is a God, then I'm accountable to him. And here's the truth, people don't want to be accountable, do they? They don't want to be told what they should and shouldn't do. Instead, who do they want to be their own God? Me, yeah. Not Joel McPherson, them. Genesis 1 through 2 tells us very clearly that God made everything and tells us how he did it. He did it in 6 days, not billions of years ago. Yet people do not want to hear that. I want you to think about something for a minute. When you saw this, why did you say, Brianna? It's got a signature. What else? Anybody else? Well, you know, Talent Night, we showed some of this before. You know that she likes art. When you saw the name Micah on here, you automatically assumed that it was Micah. Why? His name is on it. He attends here. There's that you know me, and you trust in that. And in the same way, when it comes to the future, we got to trust somebody that's been there, that knows. And that's what the Word of God. It's an accurate account of what happened through creation. So again, why do people not believe? And I know some of you are like, well, I thought this was kind of like church and we talked about the Bible. Well, here's your chance. Romans chapter 1. Turn with me, Romans chapter 1, verse 18. Don't worry, we will not go a long time here. Romans chapter 1 and verse 18. It says, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness. What does that mean? Godlessness. Acting like there is no God. The wrath of God is being revealed against all those who act like there is no God. The wickedness of people, what do? They suppress the truth. In that word suppress, what does that mean? That means they know the truth, but they push it down. They shove it down. They go outside and they see the beauty of creation, but they're like, oh, I don't want to believe that there is a God. I'm going to come up with another solution here because I can't deal with this. Since what may be known about God is plain to them. Isn't it plain to us when we see what God has created? It shouts to us that there is a creator. It's made plain to them because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. That means that every living being who has been able to see and experience and hear the wonders of creation are without excuse. So here's the thing. If you ignore the marks of the designer, that is your own foolishness. And I was wondering, do I dare say this? I think I should. If you ignore the marks of the designer, that makes you a fool. I didn't say it. God did. Psalms chapter 53 verse 1 says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God." Verse 21, "For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God, nor gave him thanks. But their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened." What does that mean? They see in creation a God, but they choose not to give praise to the God who made them. They choose not to give thanks, and because of it, they became darkened. The people of this world are not praising or thanking their Creator. Verse 22 says, "Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal human beings, and birds, and animals, and reptiles." You know what it was? They look at God and what He requires of them, and they said, "Man, I don't want to do that. Let's make something more attainable. How about we worship this snake? Or how about we worship this?" And have you ever studied idolatry? I mean, some of the things that those so-called gods required, not good. Prostitution, burning your kids in the fire, wicked things. Why? The standard is way low then, right? You don't have to be accountable to the one true God. So the question I want to end with, and I didn't tell you this in advance, but those family, do you mind coming up? I'd like to play that one song we played earlier. The question I want to leave with you is, what comes before the natural? And the truth is this: no one can answer this for you. All I can tell you is that it takes a lot more faith to believe in the natural processes to create everything than it does to believe in a God who has created everything. Would you stand with me? And if you wouldn't mind, just bow your heads and close your eyes for a moment. When I was getting ready this morning, often I think about, how do I say this in a way to impact the majority of people? And as I was preparing, thoughts that go through my mind are, well, everyone here already believes this. And the word that I got from the Lord is, preach to the one. Because if you don't preach to the one, you're not preaching to anyone. So today, I want to preach to the one. Maybe there's several ones out there. But I want to preach to you today and tell you that God is real. Maybe you have been looking and wondering. Maybe you have been taught so many different things. I want to tell you today, just simply open your eyes and see the beauty of God, all that He has created. And know that He is God and that He loves you. And give your heart to Him. So if you believe in God, then what? Find out what He wants for your life. And I tell you, it's this. He wants you to realize that He loves you. You've sinned, you've blown it, you've gone away from God. But here's the truth. He came and gave His Son, and He died on the cross for you, so that you could be forgiven, so that you could have a relationship with Him. Today you have the opportunity to have a new start in Jesus. You have the opportunity to begin a relationship with Him. So if you are here today and you do not have a relationship with God, maybe you've been told lies, but today you want to come and make Him the Lord of your life. You want to say, I believe in God. If that's you, would you mind raising your hand? I was sent with this message for you. Just one moment, I'm going to lead us in a prayer. But as we do this, if you're here today and you're not right with God, you haven't ever asked Jesus Christ into your heart, I want to let you know that God loves you so much. If you will just open your heart to Him, He will show you who He is. And He is a wonderful God that can change your life forever. For everyone else that's here today, the thing that God impacted me with was yes, I believe in God, but I need to be reminded He is the awesome creator of everything. You know, if the message to the lost is, if He's God, then what does He require? The message should shout even more to us. We know Him. If He is God, what does He require of our life? Let's remember that He is the all-powerful God, and let's live for Him. We're going to sing one song in closing, and if God is working on your heart and you need to deal with some things, I invite you to come down to this altar. But just take for a moment and pray and talk to the Lord, and then I'm going to lead you in a song.